Jimi Hendrix. We all know that he's one of the greatest guitarists of all time, but one of the things I love about his journey and who he is as a musician is the fact that he was a bluesman at heart. Now, this particular video is a gem. I know a lot of you that are Hendrix fans have seen this, but this is a video that inspired me from a very, very young age as far as my musical growth was concerned, and even just an impact as a listener. It's Hendrix basically playing the blues on a 12-string guitar and being able to really show us why he was the master that he was. And you kind of see a lot of the things that I've talked about in previous videos, but is historically well known, that he had these massive hands, very, very crafty hands that allowed him to do things on guitar that most people wouldn't be able to do. And you're going to see in this video how evident that is. I mean, to play on a 12-string guitar is not an easy thing to do, but the way he bends the strings and still makes it sound like Jimmy, and even is so expressive on it. And on top of that, this beautiful voice. And this is an original blues that he wrote, which is in a exclusive catalog of Jimi Hendrix blues songs. It's like a genre on its own. I say this quite often. B.B. King was the one that said that if Jimi Hendrix chose to play the blues exclusively, everybody would be out of work, out of all the blues musicians. So without further ado, let's get into Hear My Train a Comin' by Jimi Hendrix. This is amazing. This is just him noodling. We haven't even gotten to the meat and potatoes of the song yet. But you can kind of see this is, there are, it's like an endless flow just comes out of him. It's like a, stream of consciousness that just comes out in his playing. And, there are these rare videos, or I guess I should say they're just YouTube videos, but they're rare recordings of Jimi Hendrix playing just his Strat unplugged, I guess just him in a small amp in his bedroom, or him playing acoustic in some of these recordings. And he just sounds phenomenal. And you see why he was able to make that chaos of the feedback and all that sound so profound, and cut through all that noise, because he had such a grasp on the actual tonality and the acoustics and the sonics of the instrument itself at a very primal level. It's something where, I feel like guitar is such a personal instrument because it really comes down to your finger strength, the touch that you have on the guitar, the way you strum, so many different factors. And he had his, voice on the guitar down pat. Like he had that even before he was famous. He refined that before he was, discovered. So I think it's interesting to just see him noodling here because you get an idea as to how the guy practiced. He just practiced what he liked hearing, and he knew what he was doing in his own way. It was his own language at this point. And then you hear him, you'll see how he kind of comes out of that stream of consciousness shortly here as we get into the bulk of the song.
Hey, can we just have one kind of hurry? Don't waste all the film there. Stop it for a second. Because I was scared to death. So then, can I just do it one more time, though? Can I just do it one more time?
This is like interesting to see this side as well of Hendrix, because what we know of him is obviously he was very much influenced by the peak blues musicians that came from the Delta. So, Muddy Waters, Robert Johnson, Howlin' Wolf. I think even understanding, a lot of the John Lee Hooker stuff coming out of, streamlined in Mississippi through Detroit. But hearing him play, I mean, he has those qualities of the Robert Johnson thing where he's able to almost play two different parts at once. He's playing rhythm and he's playing lead at the same time. That was one of the things that a lot of those famous guitarists that first saw Jimi Hendrix when he came to London. You have Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. When they saw him, he was already able to basically have that as his personal brand as a musician. He was able to play lead and rhythm in a very profound way. And then from there, he's able to go on to, creating all these masterpiece albums. But this is the fundamentals. This is the core of who he is, where you kind of see what the where the foundation of this playing comes from. And for him to be able to have that kind of haunting, almost eerie Robert Johnson kind of quality about his playing, but even also his voice. I say this time and time again that Jimi Hendrix, I think, had a beautiful voice, and he could sing the shit out of the blues. So, he didn't like his own voice, but that's something I would challenge him on. I'm like, hey, man, you sound fucking great.
Waiting for the train, yeah. Take me from this lonesome place. Well, now a whole lot of people put me down how to change you. My girl and called me a disgrace.
And the lyricism within this. Like, the imagery, this is... Obviously, there are a lot of blues standards that were written by his idols, and I think just the lineage of bluesmen that came before him. But this is such a personal song to him. This is a Jimi Hendrix song. And how many of us can relate to that? Like, I'm going to use my own personal experience for a second, but moving between many different cities in my adult life and even throughout my life, dealing with new characters, dealing with new women, dealing with new relationships, all that stuff. And you kind of know that everything has an expiration date, and, kind of knowing when your next chapter is starting. Most people that have been through a lot of these changes, you kind of become aware after a couple of times, very early on in life. And as you progress through these different chapters and through these different environments, you kind of know when things are about to fizzle out and when something new is about to come your way. And it's that classic thing, right? Clearing space. But there is a loneliness that comes with clearing space for the next level up. And what a hell of a song to capture that. I don't think he would have branded it in that way, but I mean, this is me on almost like taking the blues and kind of analyzing it so that it could be relevant to how many of us actually feel this, and we're probably not putting this into words. So I always love that. I always love the lyrics of the song too, like moving on, gonna leave this town. I'm gonna get on the next journey. I'm gonna get on the next opportunity. It's creates hope.
Well, it's too bad, little girl, it's too bad. Too bad we have to part.
And I mean, look at the guitar playing. I mean, like, it's just effortless. I mean, I think to do this with a pick too, like, I feel like there's more of a personal touch when you're using your thumb. You get more of the human sound and kind of like the fleshy kind of feel around the strings when you're playing. But I just think it's amazing just watching him strum away, just like somebody would be strumming on a campfire guitar and singing campfire songs. But he's able to play this and deliver some phenomenal blues lyrics and vocals on top of that. And how liberating must that have been to be able to play that freely and then be able to just sing what you're feeling on top of that. I mean, I think that's the primary goal for most of us in music. You want to feel like it's the closest thing to magic, in my opinion, is being able to play music. It's like, it's sorcery, it's witchcraft. You're coming up with this stuff, and you're using spells, which would be scales and existing theory, and you're an alchemist. And Jimi was an alchemist. I mean, you can't do it. This, I mean, this came out of a human being, in the last, within the last 100 years. That's pretty amazing.
Gonna leave this town, yeah. Gotta leave this town. Gonna make a whole lot of money. Gonna be big, yeah. Gonna be big, yeah. I'm gonna buy this town. I'm gonna buy this town. Put it all in my shoe.
Yeah, that's the thing about just moving on, I'm going to put it all in my shoe. I'm going to forget about it. I'm going to consider this just part of the journey. And, I think for him to be able to just kind of, roll with the punches. I mean, the one thing I admire about Jimi Hendrix is that he wasn't afraid to be the student, and he wasn't afraid to be, having to start over and be at the lowest points and then build himself back up. And like I said, I'm not trying to glorify struggle, but I'm talking about actually being able to live within your environment and absorb what you're taking from those places. Sometimes it's not always good, but everything shapes you in a certain way, right? And I think Hendrix had that. You don't play music like that just by, approximating life. You have to have an intention behind why you want to sound a certain way or whatever you're doing in life. I think that's a lost art. I think even most of us that work office jobs or whatever, or if you're just working a job that you feel is transitional, yeah, it's very easy to fall into the thing of like, this is not for me, and why should I have to do this? I should be living a certain way. But a lot of that is like every part of the journey has value in life. I mean, there's a reason why all of this happens. And, some people I think like to discredit when things are maybe not branded a certain way of like, oh, this person has an easier life or this person has a harder life. But whatever somebody's nervous system is wired to in their realm, that is a valid experience. That is hard or that is soft or whatever. Each person is able to express that this is a thing that affected them. And I think that's one of the things, like with Jimi Hendrix, probably a lot of the blues guys back in the day, like the Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker, they had harder lives, quote unquote, on paper compared to Jimmy. But look at the music that came out. You can't quantify the emotions of a human being and say this person didn't feel these things. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about just being able to play crazy and be a virtuoso, but the feeling. There's soul in this man's music, whether he's playing the blues or whether he's doing this crazy psychedelic, freaking 20-minute solo or whatever you want to call it. He had that. He was touched. He was in touch with his spiritual energy.
Put it all in my shoe. Might even give a piece
It looks like the end of the video is, cut out, but and that guitar playing, brilliant.
You think I'd do that?
Absolutely beautiful. I mean, James Marshall Hendrix, there's a reason why I react to his videos. And I think, as I expand this channel, one thing I'm going to be doing, which I've already started laying some seeds for this, where every one of my reaction videos, they aren't just reaction videos or, analyzing music. It's also leaving you all with a takeaway that you can use on your own journey to sharpen your own perspective and be able to have something you can carry with you. And the reason I do that is because I'm fascinated by all these historical figures, whether it's Jimi Hendrix or, a Ray Kroc or Colonel Sanders, Muddy Waters, all these people, I'm fascinated by what they did as they moved through life to protect their gifts, protect the garden, protect the magic, so to speak, in this case with music. And that's not an easy thing to do. A lot of people associate that with the inner child, and I think there is an aspect to that. But sometimes that thing just becomes something that's bigger than just a certain moment, a certain feeling that's just encapsulated by childhood. It becomes something that you feel like, hey, this is the purpose of being alive. And you have to create, and you have to build something to contribute towards society, because not all of us are meant to be parents. Not all of us are meant to be spouses. Not all of us are meant to be, I would say, have the traditional personal lives per se. A lot of men, and I think a lot of people in general, are wired to be creators. And there are consumers and there are creators. And creators know what that sacrifice is to protect their garden. That is their foundation. That is their purpose. That is their why. And I'm fascinated by that journey. With Jimi Hendrix, I think that's why he's one of those stories that stand out to me where, you know, between leaving Seattle and even within Seattle as a kid, he had a tumultuous childhood with the divorce and seeing all this kind of instability within his family. You know, joins the Army, 101st Airborne, you know, going down to Monterey, then going to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, just right outside of here in Nashville, and then ending up on Jefferson Street here in Nashville. And then from there going to New York, bumping his head around there, playing the culture wars between the hippies and the black community in Harlem, and they rejecting him. And then finally finding his footing in London, you know, being discovered by Linda Keith and Chaz Chandler and being able to be brought over to an audience and a community that actually revered what he was doing. And sometimes not all of us are lucky to do that, but sometimes you have to create whatever that is. But my point is to be able to nurture and protect the garden as you move along. And the one thing I love about this entire album, the blues compilation album by Jimi Hendrix, but also even this particular performance, is like, it just shows you, like, imagine if he was just a brilliant electric guitarist or whatever you want to call it, that's one thing, but he embodies the entire journey of a bluesman, or an entire journey of that thing that he wanted to become. And I'm not saying you have to tie your identity to a path of struggle, but to be able to carve out what exactly you think you're good at and what your calling is in life, to be able to not approximate the journey and to be able to carry that with you so that you're able to protect it at any given time. There were times where Jimmy was without a guitar because he had to pawn a guitar to survive. When he picked it back up, I'm sure he had systems to get back to exactly how he was supposed to sound. Could you imagine 2-3 months of not having a guitar and then going back and, like, you know, you kind of lose the thing that's supposed to make you money or what your life's work is? No. A lot of us that want to be creative, we develop systems to sustain what those gifts are. You know, otherwise it can get lost in the chaos of life. So, you know, this is one of the reasons why I follow Jimmy very closely, and a lot of the other historical figures that you're going to see, both musical and in business, as the channel starts to progress. But as always, thank you guys very much. If you found some value in this video, hit like and subscribe for more of these, and I will catch you all in the next video. Appreciate you.